Hey guys, welcome back to Mindtales Sleep Stories. I'm really glad you're here tonight. Maybe you're listening because you want to unwind. Maybe because your day was a little too loud. Or maybe because sleep has been playing hard to get lately. Whatever brought you here, I want you to know that this story is meant for you. Just a space to breathe, relax, and drift softly inward. Tonight's tale is called The House with a Mirror for a Door. It's a gentle, calming, psychological fairy tale about a strange little home at the edge of a forgotten forest. A home that refuses to open to anyone until they face something most people tiptoe around: themselves. But don't worry, this isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's soft, warm, reflective, like a late-night conversation with someone who knows you better than you think. The kind that feels like a hug you didn't know you needed. Before we begin, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders sink just a bit deeper into your pillow, blanket, or the soft gravity of wherever you're resting right now. Feel how your body subtly asks for release, and give it permission to have that. And hey, just a reminder, you can like, subscribe, or comment, but only if you really feel like it. No pressure. Zero expectations. This time is for you. If the lights are still on around you, you can dim them or just soften the environment. You can close your eyes whenever you want. You don't need to stay awake for the full story. Your mind will keep listening even as you drift, and the words will gently carry you through the night. Now, imagine yourself stepping into a quiet evening. You can feel a mild breeze brushing your skin, the kind that feels like nature exhaling. The sky is a rich, velvety blue, that deep shade that appears just before true night, when the world seems to hold its breath and the day finally loosens its grip. You begin walking down a narrow path. It's not a dramatic road, no glowing signs, no mystical fog swirling around your ankles. It's simple, almost humble. Packed dirt, cool beneath your feet. Faint traces of footprints from whoever has walked here before. Wild grass gently leaning inward, as if curious about your arrival. The forest beside you stretches tall and old, but not threatening. It feels like stepping into a memory instead of a wilderness, like the trees have seen you before, even if you don't remember them. Their branches sway lazily, not in warning, but in quiet welcome. You keep walking, guided by a kind of instinct more than purpose. That gentle internal tug, the one you sometimes feel when passing a bookstore window, or when opening a drawer you haven't looked through in years. A soft signal from somewhere inside saying, "There's something here for you." As you move forward, you realize the night is unusually peaceful. Even your thoughts feel slower, as if they're taking their shoes off before entering the story. There's no urgency, no deadlines, no lists. Just the rhythmic sound of your breath and the small crunches of the path beneath you. Eventually, the trees begin to thin. Ahead, tucked neatly at the edge of the forest, stands a house. It's small, charming, almost quaint, like the kind of place you'd sketch absent-mindedly in the margins of a notebook. A quiet slope to the roof, a chimney leaning with the pride of old age. A few windows that wink with the soft warmth of lamplight. But the most unusual thing is the entrance. Where the door should be, where you instinctively expect wood or paint or anything solid, there is instead a tall, flawless mirror. It reflects you, not the version you curate, not the version tiredness edits, not the version the world expects from you, but the version that simply is. The house doesn't look magical. The mirror doesn't glow or shimmer. Yet something about it feels undeniably alive. You stand before it, the forest murmuring behind you, the night stretching endlessly above you, and you sense, deep in your chest, that stepping inside this house may change something subtle but important. But before anything can begin, you take a moment, a quiet breath, a gentle grounding, a soft acknowledgement that you are here and that this story is now unfolding around you. And with that, your journey begins. You stand in front of the mirror door just long enough to become aware of the little details most people usually overlook. Like how your reflection doesn't quite behave the way reflections should. It's not doing anything dramatic. No delayed movements, no mysterious smiles. It just looks real, too real, as if mirrors everywhere else have been gently lying to you your whole life, offering softened versions of yourself. But this one shows you the full truth, still gentle, still kind, just honest, in a way that feels strangely refreshing. You take a cautious step closer. Your reflection mirrors it. Another breath, slow and steady. And as you lift your hand toward the glass, something curious happens. The surface ripples, not like water, more like thin silver fabric gently disturbed by a breeze. You half expect your reflection to distort, but instead it remains perfectly clear, perfectly steady, almost encouraging. You touch the mirror. It's cool at first, then warm, then weightless. Your hand sinks through as if passing through a curtain of soft light. A mild tingle travels up your fingers. Not unpleasant, just new. The kind of sensation you get when touching something unexpected, like the first time you dip your foot into a warm pool or brush your hand over a velvet cushion. You step through. The transition is silent, smooth, almost elegant. No flashing lights, no spinning sensations. Just a gentle shift, like stepping from one dream into another without waking up in between. Inside, the house welcomes you with the quiet glow of amber lamps and a cozy warmth that wraps around you like a soft blanket straight from the dryer. The air carries a scent that is impossible to mistake. The delicate blend of old books, warm wood, and the faint sweetness of something baking, though you don't see an oven anywhere. The living room is simple, but deeply comforting. A quilted armchair sits near a window, its pattern a mismatched yet delightful harmony of gentle pastels. A wooden table rests nearby with a cup of tea already poured, steam curling upward in slow ribbons, as if waiting patiently for you. On the wall is a frame, but instead of a picture, it contains another mirror, smaller, oval-shaped, bordered by dark, polished wood. But unlike the entrance mirror, this one doesn't reflect the room. Instead, it shows something else entirely. A slow-moving swirl of soft colors, blues, golds, muted greens, as if the mirror is still deciding what emotion it wants to become. As you step closer, you hear a voice behind you. Calm, warm, patient. The kind of voice that doesn't rush, doesn't push, and carries the quiet confidence of someone who understands more than they explain. You came, the voice says. You turn. There stands a figure, not imposing, not mystical, simply present. A person whose features seem familiar in a way you can't place. Not because they resemble someone you know, but because they look like how comfort might look if it were human. Their smile is soft, their posture open, relaxed, inviting. You're right on time, they say. People always worry they're late. But this house doesn't keep track of the things that stress you. You feel the truth of the statement immediately. The house really doesn't care about your deadlines, your missed texts, your responsibilities waiting outside the forest. It simply holds space, steady and warm. Why was the door a mirror, you ask? The figure tilts their head slightly, amused in a gentle way. Well, Most doors want to know who you are before they let you in. This one just wants to make sure you know. You let that sink in. The words don't feel like lessons or advice. They feel like observations, soft as a blanket being arranged over someone who's already falling asleep. They gesture toward the cup of tea. For you, the house makes what you need before you know you need it. You sit, lifting the cup. It's warm in your hands, the perfect temperature. The taste is familiar but indescribable, like the memory of comfort rather than a specific flavor. As you take another sip, the strange oval mirror on the wall shifts. Colors swirl with purpose now, slowly forming an image that feels like the beginning of something important. The figure notices and nods with a quiet smile. It's ready. You look up at the mirror, and the story continues. The colors inside the oval mirror begin settling, like mist organizing itself into meaning. Swirls soften into shapes, outlines sharpen into clarity, until finally, you recognize what you're seeing. Not a memory. Not exactly. More like the idea of a memory. Something emotional rather than literal. A moment you've carried quietly for years without realizing its weight. The mirror shows a room you've been in before. Not clearly, just enough to spark a familiar tug in your chest. A lamp you once owned. The soft outline of a table where you used to leave keys or coffee cups. A chair that creaked when you sat in it. But the room in the mirror isn't about furniture. It's about a feeling you haven't visited in a long time. The pressure of pretending everything is fine when, deep down, something inside you was unraveling. You watch yourself in the reflection, your past self, sitting on the edge of a bed. Your shoulders slumped just slightly. Your hands clasped together. Your expression caught between exhaustion and wanting to be strong. It's not a dramatic moment, not a breakdown. Just a quiet struggle, the kind you rarely talk about because it feels too private, too small to share, yet too heavy to ignore. The figure beside you speaks softly. This house doesn't show pain to punish you. It shows it so you can finally stop carrying it alone. You keep watching. Your past self takes a breath, one of those breaths that tries to steady the heart, but doesn't fully succeed. You remember that moment now. Maybe you'd forgotten it on purpose. Maybe it became buried under the weight of everything else. But seeing it reflected back at you doesn't feel as painful as you expected. It feels validating, like someone finally noticed a moment you thought no one ever saw. The figure continues. There's a difference between revisiting a feeling and reliving it. This house only lets you revisit, only enough to understand what you once needed, but didn't have. In the mirror, your past self stands and walks toward a window. Their movements are slow, deliberate, like every step requires careful negotiation with gravity. You remember that heaviness, the way it felt like carrying an invisible backpack full of unanswered questions, the way sleep never quite replenished you back then. But now, watching it with the gentle space of time and distance, you feel something else come up, something warm, soft, almost protective, compassion. You look at your past self with the kind of understanding you didn't have back then. Not pity, just tenderness. The figure beside you nods. That's the part most people never give themselves. They think healing is about pushing through, not about acknowledging who they were while doing their best. The mirror shifts again. Your past self turns around, looks at the reflection. You, here, now. They don't seem afraid, just curious, maybe even relieved, as if they've been waiting for you. You take a slow breath. Your chest loosens a little. The figure gently gestures toward the mirror. You can step closer if you want, or you can stay exactly where you are. The house allows choice. Healing is never a command, it's an invitation. You stand, you walk. Each step feels strangely grounding, as though the floors beneath you are quietly affirming your movement. Not pushing, not pulling, simply supporting. You place your hand lightly on the wooden frame of the mirror. Your reflection, the current you, appears beside your past self in the glass, not merging, not replacing, simply standing together for the first time. The air around you softens, the swirling colors fade into a warm golden hue, and the figure behind you whispers, "You're ready for the next room." The mirror surface ripples open. You step forward, and the house deepens around you. As you step through the rippling surface of the mirror, the world reshapes itself around you. Not abruptly, not jarringly, but with the same gentle ease as sliding beneath warm blankets. Your feet land on soft wooden floors, smooth as polished river stones. The air is mild, carrying hints of cedar and faint whispers of something sweeter, like the memory of vanilla rather than the actual scent itself. You find yourself standing in a hallway. Long, quiet, perfectly still. But this is no ordinary hallway. Its walls, though made of wood, hold the subtle sheen of something reflective, almost like brushed metal softened into timber. Not enough to show a full reflection, but enough that when you walk, you catch ghost-like shapes of yourself drifting along the surface. The figure from before enters behind you, their presence as steady as a heartbeat. This, they say softly, is the hallway of unspoken thoughts. You look around, expecting whispers, words hanging in the air, or spectral reminders drifting about like fog. But the hallway remains quiet, serene, almost reverent. It doesn't show what you said, the figure continues. It shows what you swallowed. You feel a subtle tightening in your chest, not uncomfortable, but familiar. Everyone has things they chose not to say, moments where silence felt safer, times when honesty seemed too heavy to lift. You take a step forward. Immediately, a soft glow blossoms on the wall beside you. A faint outline forms, like someone sketching a memory in thin strokes of light. At first, you don't recognize it. Then it sharpens. A kitchen, a conversation you never finished, something you wished you had said, but didn't, for reasons you barely understood at the time. The moment wasn't dramatic, just a small ache, a sentence that never escaped your throat. The outline flickers, then fades, not pushing you, not demanding explanation, just acknowledging its presence in your life. You walk further. Another glow, another soft outline. This one rougher, less polished. A moment of frustration you held inside until it tangled with your breath. Words you didn't speak because you were trying to keep the peace, even if the silence cost you something. The hallway does not judge. It merely reveals gently, like someone folding open a letter with careful fingers. People think unspoken thoughts disappear, the figure says quietly, but they don't. They simply settle inside you, waiting to be understood, not released in anger, not thrown into the world, but simply seen. You pause at a particular glow. This one hits closer. It shows you sitting alone, older than the past self you saw earlier, yet still younger than now, trying to explain something to someone who wasn't listening. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know how. You had stopped mid-sentence, realizing the weight of your words wasn't landing anywhere. And with that realization, you let the rest dissolve into silence. You feel that familiar flicker in your ribs. Not pain, recognition. The figure steps beside you. You weren't wrong to stay quiet. You weren't wrong to protect yourself. But you also don't need to carry the unfinished pieces forever. You trace a fingertip along the glowing outline. It warms beneath your touch, soft, alive. And then, like exhaling, it dissolves. Not erased, not gone. Simply released from its tight little corner inside you. You move further down the hallway, feeling lighter, not because anything dramatic happened, but because the hallway allows you to finally acknowledge the small, quiet truths you've ignored in the name of being strong, reasonable, patient, or simply tired. At the end of the hallway stands another mirror, taller, narrower, framed in dark carved wood. This one does reflect you, but not just your appearance. It reflects your expression, your posture, your energy. And you realize something. You look softer, not weaker, just more like someone who has stopped pretending they're made of stone. The figure gestures toward the mirror door. On the other side, they say, is a room where your voice finally matters. You take a slow breath. Your hand moves toward the frame. And when you step through, the world widens again. The moment you cross the threshold, the sound changes. The air in this room has presence, like stepping into a cathedral made of warm, living silence. It's not empty, it's listening. The room is circular, with high wooden walls curving gently inward, as if embracing the space. Soft lanterns hang above, glowing with a steady amber warmth. In the center lies a cushion, thick, inviting, the exact height that supports your posture without making you feel stiff. The figure motions toward it. Sit. You do. The cushion gives beneath you with a quiet sigh, as though relieved you finally arrived. The figure takes their place across from you, mirroring your posture. They fold their hands gently in their lap. Their expression is that same soft neutrality, a kindness without pressure. This, they say, is the room of returning echoes. You look around, half expecting to see symbols, carvings, or supernatural swirling mist. But the room remains comfortingly plain. How does it work? You ask. The figure tilts their head. You speak, they say simply, and the room answers with what you truly meant. You blink. That sounds dangerous. A gentle smile. No, only honest. You take a breath. A long, slow inhale that reaches somewhere deeper than your lungs. What should I say? Anything. A pause. Or nothing. The room knows the difference. You look down at your hands. They're relaxed now. For once, you're not bracing for anything. So you speak. Not a confession. Not a dramatic proclamation. Just a simple truth you haven't said aloud in a while. I've been tired, you say softly. Not just physically, just tired of holding everything together. The moment the words leave you, the room responds. Your voice echoes back, not as a repetition, but as an understanding. I've been carrying too much, the echo says, in your exact tone, but a shade gentler, a bit more compassionate. It feels like hearing your own truth wrapped in a blanket. You try another. I don't know what to do with certain parts of myself, you admit. The room breathes your words back with tenderness. I'm figuring out how to live with my whole self. You inhale sharply. It doesn't hurt. It simply lands. You keep going. Words that have lived inside you for years begin drifting into the room. Hesitant at first, then steadier. Not burdens, just truths. I wish I had spoken up more. Echo. I deserve to be heard. I don't always know what I feel. Echo. I'm learning myself. I'm scared sometimes. Echo. I'm human, and that's okay. Each returning echo settles into your chest like a puzzle piece, finally finding its place. The figure watches without interfering, their presence a silent reassurance that none of this is too much, too dramatic, too messy. It is simply you, seen clearly, reflected kindly. When you finish, you exhale. Not because you plan to, but because something inside you loosens and lets go. The figure speaks gently. The room doesn't tell you who you are. It shows you who you've been trying not to overlook. You look around again. The walls glow faintly, responding to your calm, like living wood. For the first time in a long while, your chest feels open instead of guarded. The figure stands and offers you a hand, not to pull you up, but to guide you. There's one more room, they say quietly. People call it different names, but most know it as the place where you finally see yourself without the noise. You rise. The cushion remains warm beneath you. A door you didn't notice before opens silently in the wall, and you step toward the heart of the house. The door opens onto something entirely unexpected. A garden. Not a grand one, not overflowing with mythical flowers or glowing vines, but a simple, deeply peaceful space surrounded by wooden fencing woven with ivy. Lanterns float gently above the ground, casting soft circles of warm light over patches of moss, stone paths, and small clusters of delicate blossoms. The air is cool but comforting, like early morning right before sunrise. A breeze carries the faint scent of jasmine and something earthy, grounding. But the most striking feature sits at the center. A still, perfectly circular pool of water. Dark, clear, glass-like. It reflects the sky above, even though the sky itself is not visible. It reflects the lanterns, even though their glow doesn't reach the water directly. And when you step closer, it reflects you, but not as you look on the outside. The reflection shows your posture, your breath, your subtle emotional currents. You can see tiredness resting beneath your eyes, but softened. You see strength you forgot you had. You see the gentle vulnerability you rarely show. The figure stands quietly beside you. This, they say, is where the house stops showing your past. Here, it shows your present. You crouch near the pool, watching the reflection shift with each inhale and exhale. Not distorted, responsive, as if the water listens. When people look at their reflection, the figure continues, they usually search for mistakes, flaws, signs of aging, proof of something they fear. You swallow lightly. It's true, reflections often feel like silent critics. But this pool, they say, reflects you the way someone who loves you would see you, fully, kindly, honestly. You stare deeper, and for the first time in a very long time, you see yourself without the filters of expectation. Not the version you show your friends, not the version you perform for work, not the version shaped by fear or pressure or habit. Just you, your real expression, your real softness, your real presence. And it's not disappointing. It's not lacking. It's not flawed. It is human, warm, quietly strong. A sensation builds in your chest, not sharp, not overwhelming, just a gentle awareness spreading outward, like warmth from a cup of tea held between your palms. The figure kneels beside you. You've been carrying the idea that you need to be more, they say softly. But the truth is, you needed to see that what you already are is enough. The water shimmers faintly. Not magic, just truth. You touch the surface with one finger. Ripples spread outward in delicate circles, carrying your presence through the entire pool. When the surface stills again, your reflection returns. Clearer, calmer, more you than before. The figure stands and offers another gentle gesture, an invitation rather than instruction. There is one final chamber, they say, the heart of the house, where everything comes together. You take one last look into the pool. Your reflection looks back, not asking, not questioning, simply existing with quiet confidence. And for the first time, you feel ready to meet the next part of yourself. You rise. The figure leads you toward a wooden arch at the far end of the garden, overgrown with soft leaves and tiny silver-blue flowers that release a faint glow as you pass beneath them. Beyond the arch waits another door, simple, unadorned, but humming with something gently important. You push it open and step forward into the deepest truth the house has to offer. The door closes softly behind you, making almost no sound at all, more like a sigh than a click. The space you step into feels different from the others. Not heavier, not darker, just more concentrated, as though the air here has been thinking for a long time. It's a large room, but it doesn't feel empty. Along the walls rise tall wooden shelves, each one divided into neat compartments. Instead of books, the shelves hold objects, small, ordinary-looking things. A faded ticket stub, a cracked mug, a notebook with a frayed spine, a single key on a thin ribbon, a pair of headphones with one ear cushion slightly worn down. It looks like the lost and found of your own life. The figure enters behind you, footsteps soft, expression as calm as ever. This is the room of shelved selves, they say. You take a few steps forward, your eyes drifting from one object to the next. At first, everything looks random, but as you get closer, recognition begins to bloom. You see a small sketch, rough, unfinished, tucked in one corner. You remember drawing it years ago, when you thought you might actually do something with your creativity, when you still believed you had time and space and permission. You see a folded flyer from a class you almost signed up for. You told yourself you were too busy, that it was frivolous, that you'd get to it later, when life calmed down. Life, predictably, never sent a formal notice of being calm enough. The figure watches you gently as your gaze travels. These, they explain, are not just things. Each one belongs to a version of you that you set aside. You pause at that. Set aside, you repeat. Not rejected, they clarify. Not destroyed. Simply postponed, filed away, put on top shelves because you had to handle more urgent things. You move along the wall, fingers brushing lightly over the wooden edges of the compartments. There's a pair of running shoes that still look almost new, a slim binder labeled with an old idea you never had the energy to explore, an envelope with your own handwriting on it, never opened. You remember writing it to yourself once, intending to read it when things were better. You never did. A quiet tug stirs in your chest, part curiosity, part sadness, part something softer that doesn't have a name yet. You pick up the envelope. The paper feels warm, as though it has been kept company by time itself. You slide your finger beneath the flap and open it. Inside, there is no dramatic letter, no long paragraphs, just one simple sentence, written in your own handwriting. Please don't forget about me. You exhale. The words don't accuse you. They don't guilt you. They simply state a truth on behalf of all the selves you've had to put aside to survive, to cope, to keep going. The figure speaks quietly beside you. People talk about finding themselves as if they are lost in some distant place. But most of the time, they're just shelved, waiting on the edges of your life, waiting for room. You look around the room again. Every object seems to glow now, just a little. A guitar pick in one corner, a travel brochure in another, a recipe card in your own handwriting, a bookmark stuck between two phantom pages. Pieces of identity you briefly held and then released in the name of practicality, fear, exhaustion, or simply the loudness of everything else. You feel something shifting inside, not regret exactly, more like a gentle, aching kindness for the person you were when you set those things aside. You did it because you had to, because at the time, survival looked like narrowing yourself. You don't have to reclaim all of them, the figure says. That's not the point. The point is to see them, to know they existed, to stop pretending you never wanted what you wanted. You walk to a lower shelf. There, you find something unexpected, a small, plain stone. It looks unremarkable, the kind of thing most people would ignore on a path. But when you pick it up, you feel it immediately. A memory of being young, of pockets filled with random treasures gathered from the ground. Stones, leaves, lost buttons, simply because they delighted you. Back when you allowed yourself to like things for no reason. The stone is warm in your palm. You slip it into your pocket. The figure notices and nods, pleased. Anything you take from this room, they say, you're choosing to make space for again. Not as an obligation, as a quiet promise. You don't take the envelope. You don't take the shoes or the sketch or the binder. You don't have to. Seeing them is enough. You know they're real now, part of your story, not imaginary versions of a life you failed to live, but genuine possibilities you simply couldn't hold at the time. The stone, though, that tiny symbol of unapologetic curiosity, you decide to keep. The room seems to approve. The shelves glow faintly, then slowly dim back into soft stillness, as if bowing. The figure gestures toward another archway at the far end. Time to meet the one person you've been avoiding without realizing it, they say, voice still gentle. You already know who they mean. You, and you follow them. Beyond the archway is a smaller room. It's simple, almost startlingly so after everything else. No shelves, no mirrors, no swirling lights. Just a wooden floor, smooth and warm. 2 chairs facing each other. A small table between them with a candle burning steadily, its flame quiet and unwavering. The room feels like a pause. The figure stops at the threshold and doesn't enter. This part, they say, you do without me. You turn to them, instinctively wanting their presence to anchor you. They smile, understanding. I'll be right outside, they assure you, but you need to sit with yourself, without an interpreter. You swallow lightly. It's oddly easier to face old memories and unspoken thoughts when someone calm is standing beside you, translating everything into kindness. But now, the house wants you to learn that you can do that for yourself. You step forward. The door closes gently behind you, leaving you alone, but not abandoned. You walk toward the chairs. They are identical, simple, and well-made. You sit in one, the wood supporting you with a humble sturdiness. For a moment, the chair across from you is empty. Then the air shifts. You don't see anyone appear in a flash of light. You don't hear footsteps. It's more like a realization quietly settling into place. You are no longer alone in the room. In the chair opposite sits you. Not a perfect copy. Not a mirror illusion. Just another you, with slightly less tension around the eyes, a softer line at the mouth, shoulders sitting more naturally. This version of you looks like someone who sleeps a little better, someone who doesn't wince at their own reflection, someone who knows what it feels like to be on their own side. They smile at you, not with smugness, not with pity, just with recognition. You both sit there for a moment, letting the reality of the situation settle. It doesn't feel like a fantasy. It feels like finally meeting a part of yourself that has been quietly waiting in the wings for years, ready to step forward whenever you made enough room. "Hi," they say softly. Your voice, but with a warmth you usually save for other people. You let out a small, slightly disbelieving laugh. "Hi," you answer. Silence follows, but it's a good silence. The kind you might share with someone who knows you deeply, where you don't have to fill the air to prove you're okay. "I know why you're here," your other self says gently. Or at least, "I know why I am." You tilt your head. Why? "Because you've spent a long time treating yourself like a problem to solve," they say, not unkindly. "And this house is trying to show you that you're actually a person to be met." The words land like a soft weight in your chest. Not crushing, grounding. You look at them more carefully. This version of you isn't perfect. You can see hints of tiredness, the lines of old worries. But there is no war in their expression. No quiet argument with their own existence. They sit like someone who made peace with themselves, not by becoming flawless, but by becoming honest. "What's different about you?" you ask, genuinely curious. They think about it. "I stopped assuming the worst about myself," they say slowly. "And I stopped assuming everyone else's discomfort was my fault." You stare at the candle flame for a moment, letting that sink in. "How?" you ask. Your other self leans forward slightly, elbows resting on their knees, hands folded loosely. "By listening to how I talk to myself," they say, "and choosing, over and over, not to be cruel." You feel your throat tighten a little, because you know exactly how sharp your inner voice can be, even when your outer voice is gentle with everyone else. Your other self sees the shift in your expression and smiles again, soft. "You're not failing," they add. "You've just been busy surviving. You've been doing what you know. And this place is giving you more options." You look up and meet their eyes. In them you see something that surprises you. Trust. Not a blind, unrealistic kind of trust, but a quiet belief that you are capable of learning to be kind to yourself, even if it feels like learning a new language at first. The candle flickers between you, light moving across both your faces. You realize something quietly profound. This version of you isn't a distant, unreachable ideal. They are not a reward for perfection. They are simply you, but with a little more patience, a little more honesty, and a little less self-suspicion. They extend a hand across the small table, not demanding, just offering. "Want to try being on your side?" they ask. "Just for a little while?" You take a breath, and you reach back. Your fingers touch, and something shifts. When your hands touch across the table, there is no dramatic flash of light, no chorus of cosmic insight. Instead, there is warmth. Gentle, steady warmth that travels from your fingertips up your arm, settling somewhere behind your ribs, like a lantern being softly lit. You don't merge with your other self. They don't vanish into you. They stay seated, hand in yours, as if to say, "I'm not here to replace you. I'm here to accompany you." You both sit like that for a few long, quiet breaths. Your other self speaks first, voice low and calm. "Do you know what you're really afraid of?" they ask. You think about giving a clever answer, something neat and polished. But this room is not interested in polished. So you answer honestly. "I'm afraid that if I stop pushing myself," you say, "I'll fall apart, or I'll stop trying, or I'll let people down, or I'll become..." You search for the word. Too soft, you finish, almost embarrassed. Your other self nods, not surprised. Soft isn't the enemy, they say. Soft is how you feel your life. Soft is how you notice when you're hurting. Soft is how you know when you've had enough. They squeeze your hand just a little. What you're actually afraid of, they continue gently, is what will happen if you stop treating yourself like you only deserve kindness when you're perfect. The truth makes your chest feel tight and open at the same time. You look down at your hands, the one resting in your lap, and the one still holding theirs. I don't know how to do it differently, you admit. I don't know how to not be hard on myself. It's like a reflex. Your other self smiles, small and real. Then we don't start with not being hard on yourself, they say. We start with noticing when you are. You look up. That's it? You ask. For now, they say. You notice. You don't fix. You don't judge. You don't scold yourself for scolding yourself. You just witness it. The way this house has been witnessing you. The simplicity of it feels almost suspicious, but at the same time, freeing. You can imagine it, just noticing, catching the moment your inner voice turns sharp, hearing it, noticing how it feels in your body, and instead of diving into the criticism, simply pausing. I can try that, you say quietly. Your other self nods. And when you notice, they add, you can ask yourself one small question. Would I say this to someone I love? Not to guilt yourself, just to compare. You sip that idea slowly, like tea. You wouldn't talk to someone you love the way you talk to yourself. You know that. You've known it for a while. But somehow, hearing it from another version of you, one who has clearly practiced something gentler, makes it feel more possible to change. Your other self releases your hand and leans back a little, still relaxed. This house, they say, can only do part of the work. It shows you what you've hidden. It holds what you can't carry alone. It lets you see yourself without distortion. But when you leave, their gaze softens even more. You're the one who keeps choosing how you'll treat yourself. Not perfectly, not all at once, just choice by choice, like footsteps on a path. You nod slowly. Something in you feels different now, not completely transformed, just slightly reoriented, as if your inner compass has shifted a few degrees toward kindness. You become aware of the room again. The candle's flame is shorter now, but still steady. The air feels warmer, as if warmed by the words you've traded. Your other self stands. You stand too. They step around the table and place a hand gently over your heart. This doesn't have to be dramatic, they say softly. Let it be simple. When you catch your reflection, on a screen, in glass, in your mind, try greeting yourself instead of inspecting yourself. A small smile tugs at your mouth. Hello, me, you say quietly, testing the phrase. It feels surprisingly okay. Your other self smiles, satisfied. You'll forget, they add. You'll slip back into old habits. And that's all right. The point isn't never falling back. It's noticing when you do, and walking yourself home again. You feel a prickle behind your eyes, that familiar sting of emotional recognition. You blink slowly, letting it be there without fighting it. The door behind you, one you didn't notice before, opens with a soft creak. Your other self steps back toward their chair. You realize this is goodbye, for now at least. Will I see you again? You ask. They nod. Every time you choose to be on your own side, they say, I'll be there. Not as a voice in your head, as a feeling in your chest, a kind of steadiness. You take a breath. Thank you, you say. They smile one last time. You're welcome, they answer. And thank you too, for finally coming to meet me. You step toward the open door. As you cross the threshold, the room fades behind you, Not erased, not forgotten, simply filing itself into the architecture of your memory, ready to be revisited whenever you need it. Ahead, the house shifts once more. You are nearing the part of the journey where night and understanding begin to blur, where the edges of the story start softening into sleep. And you keep walking, gently, inward. The door closes behind you with a soft click, gentle, careful, almost considerate. You stand in a dimly lit corridor, but it's not the kind of dimness that hides things. It's the kind of dimness that encourages your eyes to rest. Lanterns line the walls, each glowing with a muted golden light. They look like little moons floating inside glass, steady and warm. Nothing flickers, nothing startles. The corridor curves slightly, drawing you forward with the quiet confidence of a place that knows where it's leading you. Your footsteps make almost no sound on the wooden floor, as if the house doesn't want to disturb your thoughts. The figure who had guided you earlier is nowhere in sight. This part, it seems, you walk alone. But the air here doesn't feel empty. It feels aware. After a few steps, the walls shift subtly. Not physically. The wood stays where it is, but the shadows change. They soften, like fabric being smoothed by careful hands. And then you realize the shadows look familiar. Not because they resemble creatures or people, but because they mirror pieces of you. Your moods, your old fears, your quiet hesitations. They don't loom or lunge. They simply exist, as though waiting to be acknowledged. One shadow near your left shoulder ripples, taking a shape you almost recognize. A version of you who used to flinch when responsibilities felt too sharp. A version who tried to hold everything together with a tired smile. A version who wanted to ask for help, but didn't know how. The shadow doesn't reach out. It doesn't cling. It just stands near you, soft and gentle, like a memory leaning on a doorway. As you walk further, another shadow forms, a smaller one, a quiet fear you never named aloud, the fear of disappointing people, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being too much at the same time. This shadow is small but dense, sitting low to the ground, like a child hugging their knees. You pause as you pass it, instinctively slowing your pace. The shadow looks up, not literally, but in the emotional sense, the way you feel eyes on you when there are none. And you say softly, "I know." The shadow doesn't grow or shrink. It simply softens, like soot dissolving in water. The corridor seems to approve. You continue walking. More shadows appear, each one representing something you once tried to wrestle with, hide, or outrun. There is one tall shadow at the far wall, thin, elongated, shaped like stress, stretched far beyond what any person should carry. It hums faintly, like the aftersound of too many responsibilities crammed into too little time. You approach it, not because you are expected to solve it, but because the house has been teaching you a different rhythm. Seeing is sometimes enough. "I carried you too long," you whisper. The shadow exhales, a release so soft you barely hear it, and dissolves into the floorboards like mist returning to the earth. Another shadow to your right trembles as you pass. It looks like hesitation, like the version of you who stood in front of opportunities and wondered if you were worthy of them. You rest your hand lightly on the wooden wall near it. "You tried," you say, your voice barely audible. "And that matters." The shadow folds inward, becoming smaller and less defined, until it disappears into the gentle glow of a lantern overhead. The corridor brightens slightly, and then you see the largest shadow of all. It stands directly in front of you, blocking the path. Not aggressively, just undeniably present. This one is shaped like pressure, expectation, perfectionism. the weight of feeling responsible for everything, even things no one asked you to carry. Its edges flicker with tension, as though it's constantly bracing for impact. This shadow is not a monster. It is a tired guardian, one who tried to protect you by telling you to be careful, careful, careful. You take a slow breath. "I know why you did it," you say. The shadow leans toward you, as if listening. "You thought if I was perfect," you continue, "I'd be safe." The shadow trembles, a shiver passing through its tall form. "Thank you," you say genuinely, "but I don't need to earn safety anymore." The words settle into the air. The shadow loosens, slowly collapsing inward until it becomes a soft, harmless smudge on the floor. Then it too dissolves. The path ahead clears. And at the end of the corridor, bathed in warm light, is another door, rounded at the top, carved with small, intricate patterns resembling leaves and raindrops. Its handle is warm to the touch. You know instinctively that you're about to enter a place you've needed for a very long time. You push the door open and step through. The moment you cross the threshold, the air shifts into something almost sacred. The room is dim, not dark, but lit in soft gradients of amber and pale gold. The lighting feels like early morning sun, filtered through warm curtains. The entire space seems designed to lull your nervous system into a calmer rhythm. At the center is a bed, not a dramatic, magical bed, just a simple one, covered in thick quilts and soft blankets, arranged in gentle folds. A place that feels like it was made for you before you even arrived. You inhale. The scent of lavender, warm linen, and faint chamomile drifts toward you. It hits something deep inside you, something you didn't realize was tired until now. The figure reappears, not suddenly, but naturally, as if they've been here all along. Their expression is softer than before, almost proud. "You've done the heavy part," they say warmly. "Now you learn how to rest." You almost laugh, because resting sounds so simple, and yet has always felt like a skill you should have mastered, but never quite did. "It's not just sleep," the figure continues. "It's allowing stillness without guilt." You swallow gently. Guilt, the shadow that always followed when you tried to slow down. The whisper that said you should be doing more. The ache that convinced you rest was a luxury rather than a right. The figure motions toward the bed. "Sit." You do. The mattress accepts your weight with a quiet exhale, as though relieved you finally gave it something to hold. The figure sits beside you, close enough to feel supportive, far enough to give you space. "This room," they say, "remembers every moment you pushed past your limits." The walls seem to pulse faintly, like they're breathing with you. It remembers the nights you stayed awake, because your mind wouldn't quiet. The mornings you forced yourself up, even though your body begged for more time. The days you told yourself you had to earn rest. You feel that in your bones. But here, they add, rest is not earned. It is given. You sink back against the headboard, the pillows adjusting around your shoulders like hands smoothing a blanket. For a moment, no one speaks. You simply breathe. The figure breaks the silence gently. "There is something you need to hear." You look at them. "You are allowed to stop," they say softly. "You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to be tired without justification." Your throat tightens. You don't have to prove your humanity by dragging yourself through exhaustion. The words feel like warm water poured over cold, clenched muscles. Rest, they add, is not the absence of effort. It is the presence of care. The room deepens around you, the lighting softening even further. "Lie down," they encourage. You do. The blankets settle around you as though they know your shape. They are warm but not heavy, soft but not smothering. The figure places a hand over your heart, not touching, just hovering above it, like a warm ember. Your heart has been working harder than you realize, they say quietly. You deserve gentleness. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, just to feel. The bed feels like acceptance. The room feels like a long-awaited exhale. The figure stands slowly. You won't sleep yet, they say. Not truly. There is one more place to visit. You open your eyes. The air shifts again, rippling gently, and another door appears across the room. This one much simpler, plain wood with a small brass handle, as though it leads somewhere very personal. The figure gestures toward it. When you're ready, they say. You rise, feeling more grounded than before, and walk toward the door. Your hand reaches for the handle. You turn it, and the final chamber awaits. The door opens into a small, circular room that glows with soft white light. Not bright, not sterile, but warm in a way that feels both ancient and newborn. There are no windows, no lamps. The light seems to come from the walls themselves, as though the room is made of illumination. In the center stands a single pedestal, with a smooth, round object resting on top of it. You step closer and realize it's a sphere, a polished globe of translucent crystal that radiates gentle warmth. It pulses faintly, like a heartbeat. The figure appears behind you, their voice quieter now, reverent. This is the truth of you, they say, not your past, not your fears, not your expectations, just you. You hover your hand above the sphere. It responds instantly, glowing brighter, warmer. This light, the figure continues softly, is the part of you that has never been broken, the part that has been present through every version of you, the part that remains even when you feel lost. You lower your hand until your fingertips brush the surface of the sphere. Warmth spreads through your palm, then up your arm, then into your chest. The glow intensifies, not blinding, just truthful. You don't see memories or visions. You don't hear words or voices. You feel something simpler. You exist. You matter. You are enough. The sphere hums gently, syncing with your breathing. You have spent so long trying to fix yourself, the figure says, but there is a core within you that has never needed fixing. Your eyes sting. The figure steps beside you. Place your hand fully on it, they say. You do. Your entire palm warms, then glows. The room brightens, not dramatically, just more sincerely, as though the house itself is acknowledging your presence, your honesty, your courage to face yourself without armor. The warmth settles inside you, rooting itself like a quiet flame. This is not confidence, not perfection, not a sudden transformation. It is truth. A soft, steady truth that feels like, I am allowed to be me. The figure speaks once more. When you leave this house, they say, you will not carry perfection. You will carry light, a light that knows your shadows, your doubts, your wounds, and still shines. The sphere dims gently, as though settling into rest. You remove your hand. The warmth stays. You inhale slowly, deeply. The figure opens a final doorway behind you, one filled with soft blue twilight, like early evening blending into dream. It's time, they say. You step toward the exit, but before you leave, the figure places a hand on your shoulder. You did not come here to become someone new, they whisper. You came here to meet who you already are. You nod and step through the doorway, carrying the quiet, golden truth with you. You step into the twilight doorway, and the world shifts again, not abruptly, not with spectacle, but with the soft, inevitable ease of a page turning in a book you didn't realize you were fully immersed in. The passage you enter is long, narrow, and filled with a gentle blue light that looks like dusk stretched into a hallway. The air is cool enough to wake your senses, but warm enough to keep your heartbeat slow and steady. The floor beneath your feet is covered in something that feels like moss, springy, soft, grounding, each step sinking slightly before lifting you forward again. It feels like walking across memory, or possibility. Tiny motes of silver drift through the air like slow-moving fireflies. They don't illuminate the path, they decorate it. Their movement is calm, unbothered by your presence, as though they've been drifting for centuries and will continue long after you leave. Ahead, you see the familiar silhouette of the figure, the same gentle guide who has appeared at each threshold of your journey. They stand in the center of the passage, hands folded in front of them, expression unreadable, but not unkind. You've reached the passage between knowing and remembering, they say. You pause. Remembering what? Who you've been, they answer, and who you're becoming. The twilight glows a little brighter, shimmering faintly at the edges, as if reacting to the idea of becoming. The figure gestures for you to walk beside them. You do. As you walk, the silver motes cluster closer, forming faint images. Nothing fully clear, just outlines and soft impressions, like memories half slipping into dreams. One shape resembles a mountain you once wanted to climb. Another looks like a room where you made a difficult decision. Another is simply a silhouette, your silhouette, sitting quietly, doing nothing, yet looking more peaceful than you remember ever allowing yourself to be. The figure watches the motes swirl around you. These are neither lessons nor warnings, they explain gently. They are reminders, not of what you should be, but of what has shaped you. One mote drifts down and lands on your hand. It flickers, dissolving into warm light that sinks into your skin. A memory rises, simple, ordinary. You sitting at a table once, exhausted, but trying your hardest for someone, even though you weren't sure how to help. You didn't know it then, but that moment taught you how deeply you care, even when drained. The warmth fades, leaving understanding behind. As you continue forward, the passage widens, revealing a small archway carved into the right-hand wall. It wasn't visible until now, appearing only when you were ready to notice it. The figure nods toward it. Inside this chamber, they say, you'll revisit something small but meaningful, something you once dismissed. You step toward the archway. The moment you cross its threshold, the room shifts around you like a slow swirl of ink dissolving in water. When the shapes settle, you find yourself standing in a space that looks like a blend of memory and imagination. A quiet room, a desk, a small lamp, papers spread out, a cup of tea gone cold. You know this moment. Not the exact day, not the exact hour, just the feeling. You are working hard, doing your best, trying to hold everything together. You remember thinking, no one sees me. No one sees how much you're juggling. No one sees how much you're carrying. No one sees how tired you are. The figure appears beside you, but they don't speak. Instead, the room shifts again, and this time you see yourself from the outside. Not dramatically, just as though you're a character in a quiet story. You look tired, but you also look determined. You look like someone who hasn't given up, even on days when you wanted to. You watch yourself move slowly, deliberately, doing what needed to be done, even though your chest felt heavy and your mind felt foggy. And for the first time, you see what you missed. You were admirable, not for perfection, but for persistence. You weren't invisible. You were resilient. The figure finally speaks, their voice tender. You thought nobody saw you, they say, but you forgot that you were there. You forgot to witness your own effort. The room brightens slightly. You deserve to remember this version of you, they continue, not because they were strong, but because they were trying. You watch your past self for one more breath. And then the scene dissolves into soft twilight light. You're back in the passage. And something in your chest feels recognized. As the memory fades, the figure begins walking again, and you follow. The blue twilight slowly transitions into a warmer tone, violet blending with gold, like the sky deciding between night and dawn. Ahead, the path shifts into a bridge. It's made of smooth stone, worn by time, and lined with small lanterns glowing like embers. The bridge arches gently over a body of water so still it looks like polished glass. When you step onto the bridge, the quiet deepens. The air grows softer. The world grows slower. This is the bridge of gentle conclusions, the figure explains. You tilt your head. What does that mean? It means you're reaching the part of the house where things stop tugging at you, where the loose threads you've carried for years begin tying themselves into rest. You take a few steps, and the stone warms beneath your feet. As you walk, the water beneath the bridge shifts, not with waves, just with reflections, not literal ones, reflections of moments you never properly ended, unfinished conversations, emotions you never gave closure to, situations that drifted without resolution. The water shows them gently, not painfully. You see a version of yourself walking away from an argument still holding words you never said. You see a moment where you wanted to forgive someone, but didn't know how. You see choices you made because they were the best you could manage at the time. Each reflection is calm, without judgment. These moments don't return to hurt you, the figure says softly. They return to release you. You pause beside one reflection. It shows a version of you younger than now, older than childhood, sitting alone, trying to make sense of a difficult situation, believing you'd failed somehow because you didn't have the answers. You watch yourself reach a quiet breakdown, one of the silent ones, the kind you breathe through because tears feel too heavy. You feel tenderness for that version of you, not pity, compassion. You blamed yourself, the figure says, because you didn't know any better. But the truth is, you did the best you could with what you knew then. The water ripples gently, as if acknowledging the truth. You move further across the bridge. Another reflection catches your eye. A moment when someone hurt you, not maliciously, but carelessly, and you internalized it as something wrong with you. You watch your reflection shrink slightly, trying to interpret someone else's behavior as your fault. The figure places a hand lightly on your shoulder. That was never yours to carry, they murmur. The reflection softens, then fades. Your breath deepens. A third reflection appears, this one showing a moment of joy you barely remember, because life was too loud at the time for happiness to leave a clear imprint. You see yourself laughing, freely, fully, without restraint. It surprises you. You didn't know that moment mattered. That joy was real, the figure says, and it counted, even if you forgot it. You walk further, and the lanterns lining the bridge glow brighter, warmer. Something in your chest loosens, the kind of loosening that feels like undoing an invisible knot between your ribs. You're nearing the heart of the bridge, the figure says quietly. And when you reach the center, you'll leave behind the conclusions you forced yourself to make too early. What do you mean? you ask. You made judgments about yourself, they reply, before you had the full story, before you had the maturity, the tools, the perspective. You blamed your younger self for not being who you are now. You breathe in slowly. The water below begins glowing faintly, as though agreeing. But now, the figure continues, you get to rewrite the endings, not by changing what happened, but by changing what you tell yourself about it. You reach the center of the bridge. The lanterns brighten. The water glows gold. The air stills. This is the moment. The figure steps back, giving you space. Choose one old conclusion, they say gently. One story you've told yourself about yourself that no longer fits. A quiet settles into you, and you know exactly which one to release. You close your eyes. You breathe. You let it go, not dramatically, not in a burst of flame, but like placing something heavy onto the ground after carrying it far too long. The water shimmers. The lanterns hum softly, and your heart feels just a little freer. You open your eyes. The path ahead glows invitingly. The bridge has done its work. You move forward. The bridge ends in front of an archway framed by delicate vines and tiny golden buds. The buds pulse with light, slowly, like breathing. You step through and enter a vast circular chamber filled with lanterns. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each lantern hangs at a different height, swaying gently even though there is no breeze. They emit warm, glowing hues, gold, amber, rose, soft white, painting the room in a constellation of possibilities. You take a step inside, and the lanterns closest to you drift subtly nearer, like curious fireflies. The figure stands beside you once more. This, they say softly, is the lantern room of future selves. Your breath catches. Future selves, you repeat. The figure nods. These lanterns represent every path you could choose, every version of you that exists in potential. You look up. Some lanterns glow brighter than others. Some flicker softly. Some shine with steady confidence. Some are dim but warm, quiet dreams you haven't fed in years. The room hums with possibility. None of these are guaranteed, the figure says, and none are predetermined. They are simply possible. You walk among them slowly. The lanterns drift aside to make space for you, like respectful stars rearranging themselves in the sky. One lantern gently brushes your shoulder. It glows a soft blue, tranquil, steady. Inside, you glimpse a version of yourself who has finally learned how to rest without apology. A version who still feels, still struggles sometimes, but isn't driven by guilt or pressure. You touch the lantern lightly. Warmth spreads through your fingertips. The vision deepens. You see yourself years from now, waking up without dread, speaking kindly to yourself, making choices from curiosity, not fear. The lantern floats upward again, returning to its place. Another lantern drifts toward you, this one golden and bright. Inside, you see a version of yourself who pursued something you once dismissed as impractical, a dream you shelved long ago. This future self isn't successful because everything worked perfectly. They're content because they allowed themselves to try. You smile without meaning to. A third lantern floats near, a dim one flickering. Inside it, you see a version of yourself shaped by burnout, silence, and self-neglect. A version who continues pushing through exhaustion because they don't know another way. You touch it gently. The lantern flickers, then steadies. It doesn't mean this future will happen, the figure says behind you. It simply shows what could, if you ignore yourself. You nod slowly. I don't want that one, you whisper. You don't need to, the figure says warmly. You've already shifted away from it. The lantern drifts upward again, joining the constellation overhead. More lanterns begin glowing brighter as you walk, responding to your presence, your breath, your attention. This room, the figure explains, is not here to make you choose one future. It is here to show you that you have more than one. You stand in the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of possibilities. You feel something quietly powerful settle into your chest. I am allowed to want things. I'm allowed to change. I'm allowed to dream again. The figure moves beside you, voice soft. When you leave the house, they say, you'll carry one lantern with you. Not physically, but internally. You look around. Which one? You ask. They smile. The one you feed. A long silence follows. A good silence. Finally, they gesture toward a staircase leading upward, carved into the wall, illuminated by a soft line of lanterns. This is the way forward, they say, toward the final understanding the house wishes to give you. You take a last look at the lanterns, your futures, your possibilities, your maybes, and feel gratitude for the quiet, shimmering truth of them. Then you step toward the stairs. The figure follows. The room dims gently behind you. You are ascending deeper into yourself than ever before. The staircase curves upward like a ribbon made of soft stone. Each step glows faintly beneath your feet, lighting only when you touch it, almost as if the house wants you to see that your path illuminates, because you walk it, not before. The figure walks slightly behind you, giving you space but still present, their calm footsteps echoing lightly. The air changes as you ascend, warmer, deeper, more still. It smells faintly of cedar and something like evening rain, as if the house is preparing you for something grounding. Halfway up, you notice carvings on the wall beside you. They're subtle, etched into the stone with thoughtful hands. Symbols, tiny shapes, short phrases. You run your fingers across one of them. It reads, "Every small step counts." Another says, "You are allowed to try again." A third is just a simple shape, a circle, unbroken and whole. These markings appear differently for everyone, the figure says gently. They show the commitments you've already been making without realizing it. You frown a little. I already made commitments? The figure nods. You chose honesty over avoidance. You chose gentleness over shame. You chose to show up for yourself, even when it felt unfamiliar. You hadn't thought of it that way. To you, it felt like stumbling, exploring, trying not to flinch at your own reflection. But the house sees each of those choices as something real, something meaningful. You continue climbing. More carvings appear. One reads, "You listened to yourself." Your steps slow. That one lands. Because listening to yourself has always been harder than listening to everyone else. You've spent years putting other people's needs before your own, telling yourself that your feelings could wait, that your preferences didn't matter, that your exhaustion wasn't real enough. But here, in this house, the act of listening, just listening, has been noticed. You reach another carving. You didn't run. Your breath catches for a moment. It's true. There were so many moments in this journey where you could have turned away, when old habits whispered that avoidance was easier, that discomfort was dangerous, that staying the same was safer. But you kept walking. You kept choosing curiosity over fear. And the house knows. The figure speaks again, voice warm. These stairs aren't tests. They're acknowledgments. Reminders that you've already begun taking care of yourself, even if the steps felt too small to celebrate. You reach the top of the staircase. Your hand slides along the final railing, carved with one last message. Please continue. It feels like an invitation, not a demand, not an expectation, just a gentle request from the house, and maybe from yourself. At the top of the stairs is a door made of dark wood, polished smooth by countless hands. There's no lock, no handle, only a single, shallow indentation where your palm naturally fits. You rest your hand against it. The wood warms beneath your touch. The door opens inward. You step through. The room you enter is vast, larger than anything you've seen in the house so far. Its domed ceiling is made of glass, revealing a sky that isn't night or day, but a swirling blend of silver, gold, and deep blue. It feels like standing inside a moment between moments, timeless and completely still. In the center of the room is a circular platform surrounded by concentric rings, carved lightly into the floor. Some rings glow faintly, others remain quiet. The figure walks ahead of you. This, they say, is the observatory of choices. You step onto the first glowing ring, and it hums softly beneath your feet, recognizing your presence. Most people think choices are dramatic, the figure explains. Big decisions, life-changing actions. But the truth is, the smallest choices shape the most profound parts of who you become. The next ring lights up as you move deeper into the room, choosing to rest. A glow, choosing to breathe before reacting. Another glow, choosing to speak gently to yourself. Warmer, choosing to stay curious instead of afraid. Brighter, you stop in the center. The platform beneath you glows slowly, pulsing with your breath. The figure stands beside you, hands loosely folded. You're not here to choose a future, they say. You're here to understand the power you have in the present. The ceiling shifts subtly. The sky above swirls into patterns, shapes that look almost like constellations forming and dissolving within seconds. These patterns represent possibilities, the figure continues. But possibilities don't require perfection. They require participation. You stare upward. Some patterns look bold and bright, some faint and hesitant, some are simple, some complex. What do they mean? You ask softly. They mean everything can change, the figure replies, and they mean nothing is fixed. Another pattern blossoms overhead, soft blue and gentle white, shaping itself into something like open hands. That one, the figure says, is the possibility of compassion toward yourself. Another pattern forms, golden, warm. That one is the possibility of balance. Another, rose-colored, delicate. That one is the possibility of forgiving yourself for not knowing what you couldn't have possibly known. You inhale deeply. The sky shifts again and reveals something different. A pattern that looks like a doorway, your doorway, the one with the mirror. It flickers once, then steadies. You've already changed, the figure whispers. You did it the moment you chose to step through the mirror. You blink slowly. The thought surprises you. It hadn't felt like a dramatic decision. Just curiosity. Just the desire to understand why the house called to you. But the figure is right. Walking into the house wasn't a small act. It was the beginning of seeing yourself. The room quiets. You feel something stir inside you. A gentle, grounded awareness. Like you've been walking around with your eyes half closed, and now they're opening in slow, steady increments. The figure rests a hand on your shoulder, warm and reassuring. The next room, they say, is the most important one. It is where the house stops guiding you, and you guide yourself. You turn toward the far wall. A door is there, a simple archway draped in soft, sheer fabric that moves like breath. The room isn't pulling you. It isn't pushing you. It waits. You take one step forward, then another. The figure doesn't follow. This part is yours alone, they say. You nod. You step through the archway and enter the quietest room in the house. The room is small, no larger than a personal sanctuary. But unlike the other spaces in the house, this room contains almost nothing. No mirrors, no shelves, no objects, no lanterns, no shadows. Just emptiness, but not a hollow emptiness, a peaceful emptiness. The walls are smooth and pale, glowing faintly like the inside of a seashell. The floor is warm beneath your feet. The air smells faintly of fresh linen and the quiet calm after rain. There is just one object in the center of the room. A chair. Your chair. It looks like something you've seen before, not in the house, but in your real life. A chair from a kitchen you once lived in, a corner of a bedroom, a place you used to sit when you needed a moment alone. You walk toward it slowly. When you sit, the room exhales around you. The walls brighten slightly. You feel your breath deepen without trying. For the first time on this journey, you are not looking at your past self. You are not watching reflections of your fears. You are not standing across from another version of you. You are simply sitting here. Now. The room waits. It doesn't give you visions. It doesn't guide you. It doesn't interpret anything. It offers something rare, space. Pure, uncluttered space. Space for your thoughts. Space for your breath. Space for your truth. You take a slow inhale, and then something shifts, not in the room, but in you. You realize why this room has no images, no echoes, no memories. This is the place where you meet your becoming, not who you were, not who you think you should be, not who others expect you to be, but who you are growing into. It's quiet. So quiet that you finally hear something you've been missing. Your own voice. Not the inner critic. Not the anxious echo. Not the tired whisper. Your real voice. It rises gently inside you. Not as words at first, just as awareness. Then it shapes itself, quietly, sincerely. I am allowed to change. I am allowed to want peace. I am allowed to choose myself. I am allowed to grow slowly. I am allowed to be enough. The room brightens with every sentence. Your breath loosens. Your shoulders relax. Your heartbeat steadies into something soft and rhythmic. The room is not teaching you anything new. It is reminding you of what you already knew deep down, but forgot beneath the noise of living. A soft breeze drifts through the room from nowhere. The walls hum gently, resonating with the warmth inside you. You stand. The chair remains warm behind you. A door appears on the far wall. Your exit. Not the dramatic exit of someone transformed into a new version of themselves. The gentle exit of someone reconnecting with who they were, always meant to be. You place your hand on the door. You feel the warmth of the sphere, the light of the lanterns, the calm of the pool, the echo of the room where you spoke your truth, the softness of your other self's hand, still lingering in memory, the release of the bridge, the quiet of the shadows. All of it lives inside you now. You take a slow breath and open the door to the next chapter of your becoming. You step through the door, leaving the room of becoming behind you, and find yourself in a long, gently lit corridor. This hallway feels different from every other one in the house so far. It feels like a return, not backwards, forward, but toward yourself. The walls are lined with soft white panels, each one glowing like a quiet sunrise. The floor is smooth, warm, and steady beneath your steps. Every movement feels supported, as though the house is guiding you with a hand at your back. Gentle, steady, not pushing, simply accompanying. The figure appears ahead of you, but they don't speak right away. They simply walk alongside you, matching your pace, letting the silence settle into something comforting rather than empty. Finally, they glance at you with warm eyes. "You're almost at the end," they say softly. "Not the end of your story, just the end of this place. The house has shown you what you needed to see." You breathe in slowly. It feels true, not because everything is suddenly perfect or complete, but because you feel more whole, as though you've retrieved pieces of yourself you didn't know you had misplaced. As you continue walking, the walls begin to display faint, shifting shapes, almost like the passage at the beginning of your journey. Except, these aren't memories. These are impressions of the journey you've taken here. You see the hallway of unspoken thoughts, soft outlines of unsaid words dissolving into light. You see the room of returning echoes, gentle reflections of your own truths echoing back to you. You see the garden and its still pool, the reflection that showed you what kindness looks like when turned inward. The figure watches the walls with you. "These aren't meant to hold you here," they explain. "They're just reminders. A quiet farewell." You keep walking, and the corridor subtly widens. Something shifts in the air. You hear faint sounds, barely there. Soft laughter, quiet breathing, the rustling of leaves, the low hum of distant conversation. It takes a moment for you to realize what you're hearing. Life. Real life. The world outside the house. The figure smiles gently. You're getting close. The walls hum like a welcoming heartbeat. Ahead, you see a soft glow, a circle of warm light that looks almost like a sunrise opening into a doorway. As you move closer, the figure slows slightly. "There is one more thing you need to understand," they say quietly. You turn to them. They meet your gaze with a reverent calm. "You are allowed to return to your life without being the person you were before." A pause. You can return softer, calmer, kinder to yourself, more honest, more grounded. Their expression deepens into something almost tender. You don't have to prove to anyone that this journey changed you. The people who matter will notice on their own. The people who don't were never meant to understand the private ways you grow. You inhale, and you feel it. That soft truth settling in your ribs, steady and real. The figure nods toward the warm doorway ahead. When you cross through it, you will begin your return. But everything you gathered here stays with you. You walk forward. Each step feels like stepping more fully into your own presence. The glow brightens. You reach the threshold and step into the next chapter. The room you enter is quiet, almost reverently so. It is circular and softly lit, its walls blending gold and ivory like the inside of a candle flame. A single wooden table sits at the center, simple and warm, with 2 chairs placed across from each other. And on the table is a small, folded piece of paper. You approach slowly, feeling a quiet weight in your chest. Not heaviness, but significance. The figure stands behind you with their hands loosely clasped. "This is the room of gentle farewell," they say. "The house would like to give you something before you leave." You sit in one chair, and the figure takes the other, mirroring you, just as your other self once did. The paper on the table is warm to the touch when you pick it up. You unfold it carefully. Inside is a short note. Only 1 sentence. "You may leave, but you do not lose what you found." Your breath catches slightly. It feels like the house speaking directly to you, not in riddles, not in metaphors, but in clarity. You look up at the figure. They nod gently. This place isn't a memory, they say. It's a truth about you, a truth you can revisit whenever you need, whether you're awake, dreaming, or somewhere in between. The walls hum softly, their glow rippling. You feel a shift inside, like a door unlocking somewhere deep within you. The figure rests their hands on the table. People often worry that once they leave here, they'll forget how to be kind to themselves, that the world will be too loud, that the old habits will return. You swallow gently. It's a fear you didn't know how to name until now. But listen to me carefully, the figure continues, voice warm. You will forget sometimes. You will slip back. You will have moments where the old shadows feel familiar. A long, comforting pause. And that is not failure. That is being human. You exhale slowly. The important thing, they say softly, is that you remember how to come back to yourself. You remember the door. You remember the mirror. You remember your own light. They gesture to the note in your hand. That sentence is your reminder. You fold the note carefully and slip it into your pocket. You know it won't crumple. You know it won't fade. It lives in your memory now, sewn into the fabric of your understanding. The figure stands. It's time. A door appears on the far wall, simple, wooden, warm. There's no mirror this time, no test, no hesitation built into its design. This door is for leaving, but as you study it, you realize something that brings a soft ache to your chest. You're ready. The figure steps closer and places a hand over yours briefly. Warm, steady. Thank you for walking this house with honesty, they say, and for being brave enough to look at yourself without turning away. You breathe in deeply, feeling the sincerity of their words settle inside you. Then you stand. You walk toward the door. Your hand rests on the handle. You look back one last time. The figure smiles, the kind of smile that feels like a blessing more than a gesture. You open the door and step through. You expect the outside world. You expect the forest. You expect the cool night air. But instead, you're back in the entry room of the house, exactly where you first arrived. The armchair, the wooden table, the soft glow of the lamps, the oval mirror on the wall, calm now, swirling with gentle color instead of dense emotion. And before you, the mirror door you walked through at the very beginning. But something is different this time. The mirror does reflect you, but not in the sharp, startling way it did before. This reflection looks balanced, centered, clear-eyed, gentle. You stand before it, feeling the house settle behind you like a closing book, satisfying, complete, but still something you can revisit whenever you want. The figure materializes at your side. Silent now, their role nearly finished. You breathe slowly. The mirror ripples faintly, inviting without urgency. You lift your hand and touch the glass. It warms instantly beneath your fingers, recognizing you, accepting you. The figure finally speaks, their voice almost a whisper. You came in seeking understanding, they say, and you leave with recognition. Your hand presses deeper into the mirror. The surface softens, becoming weightless light. You are ready to return, the figure says, not as someone new, but as someone met. Your chest loosens with a quiet warmth. You step into the mirror. Light envelops you, soft, silver, comforting. You feel weight leave your shoulders. You feel breath return to its natural rhythm. You feel something in your mind shift from tightness to ease. The light grows brighter. 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 Never harsh, always gentle. And then it dims. You open your eyes. You stand at the edge of the forgotten forest. The night air is cool on your skin. The path beneath your feet is familiar again. Stars hang softly overhead, pulsing with quiet approval. You turn back. The house is gone. Not vanished, just hidden again, waiting for the next person who needs it, or for you, should you ever return. But you don't feel lost, because everything the house taught you now lives inside your chest, glowing softly like its own lantern. You breathe in, you breathe out. The night feels different now, and so do you. You take a step forward, then another, back into your life, but not back into your old self. You walk with more softness, more clarity, more quiet truth. The house is behind you, but you are with you, always. The forest greets you with a quiet familiarity, like an old friend who always leaves the porch light on. The air is cool, but not cold, soft, like the fading touch of a memory that wants to stay with you a little longer. The path before you looks exactly as it did when you first arrived. Wild grass leans inward, brushing your feet with a kind of woodland curiosity. The trees sway in a rhythm that feels slower now, more intentional, like they've adjusted their pace to match your calmer steps. You take one breath, then another. It feels different than it did before. Your lungs don't strain. Your chest doesn't tighten. Your thoughts don't sprint ahead of you. It's just breath, then another, and another. Simple, grounded, present. You start walking. The forest does not overwhelm you with sound. Rather, it wraps you in a symphony of soft, natural music. Leaves whisper their secrets overhead. Small creatures rustle through the underbrush with the politeness of someone passing through a quiet room. Distant birds murmur like they're having gentle conversations among the branches. The path curves, leading you past familiar trees, the ones that stood sentinel when you entered the house. Except now, they don't feel like guards. They feel like witnesses. They saw who you were when you arrived. They see who you are now. And somewhere in the stillness, you feel it too. You are not the same. Not dramatically, not radically, just truthfully. You carry less heaviness in your shoulders, less tension in your jaw. Your steps feel more like choices than obligations. You glance up. Between the branches, you see the sky stretching softly across the world. It's not pitch-black night anymore. It's deep blue turning toward dawn, still dark, but warming around the edges. A transition, just like you. As you continue walking, you realize something quietly profound. You are not anxious to return. You are not hesitant. You are not bracing. You are simply moving forward. The path bends again, and this time it opens slightly, just enough to let in a gentle breeze that slips past your cheeks. It carries a faint scent of earth and pine, and beneath it, something else, something subtle, like the memory of the warm light from the lantern room. You pause and close your eyes. For a moment, you let the breeze move through you. You let it stir the new shape of your thoughts, your feelings, your quiet sense of self. And in that calm, you hear something, not with your ears, but with your understanding. You do not walk alone. The words aren't spoken. They're simply present, drifting through you like a soft realization rising to the surface. You open your eyes. The path looks welcoming, softer, like it knew you would return this way. You continue walking. The forest thins gradually. The trees grow shorter. The canopy opens. The blue of the sky grows lighter, touched by the first hints of silver morning. You are leaving the forest. You are returning to your life. But this time, you're bringing something with you. Something small, steady, and warm. Yourself. The forest path widens until the trees no longer lean overhead, but stand at respectful distance. their branches opening like curtains parting at the end of a quiet play. Ahead lies a field, open, soft, gently sloping downward. The grass glows faintly with dew, shimmering under the early traces of dawn. You step forward. The air changes, lighter, sweeter, carrying the subtle scent of wet earth and something fresh and floral that hasn't yet bloomed but is promising to. Behind you, the forest watches with a quiet pride. It doesn't reach for you. It doesn't pull you back. It knows you're ready. You take a few more steps. The field feels vast and open, the kind of openness that might have once made you anxious. Too much space, too much vulnerability, too much sky. But now, it feels expansive, not overwhelming. It feels like possibility rather than pressure. Your footsteps press softly into the damp grass, leaving faint impressions that quickly fade. You smile at that. You don't need to leave marks to matter. You don't need to prove you were here. You are here, alive, aware, present. As you reach the middle of the field, the first true streak of morning light appears on the horizon, a thin line of gold stretching across the blue. You stop, you breathe. The sun isn't visible yet, but the promise of it is. And somehow, that feels like enough. The figure appears in the distance, just far enough to look dreamlike, just close enough that their presence feels real. You don't startle. Their arrival feels natural, like the final note of a long, gentle song. They walk toward you slowly, each step unhurried, unforced. When they reach you, they stand beside you without a word. Together, you watch the horizon brighten. For a while, the silence is the conversation. Then the figure speaks, voice soft. You are standing at the threshold between night and morning. You nod. I can feel that. They smile gently. This is where new understanding settles, where it stops being something you visited and becomes something you carry. You inhale deeply. The air tastes like beginning. The figure continues, tone tender. You may think the hardest part was entering the house, or speaking truth in the echo room, or facing your reflection, or meeting the other you. A small pause. But the hardest part, they say, is choosing to walk forward with what you've learned. You look at them. Their gaze is warm and unwavering. You won't always get it right, they add. No one does. But peace isn't a straight line. It's a direction. The horizon glows brighter, peach, gold, soft rose. And now, they say quietly, you walk into your life with new direction. Not perfect, not complete, just honest. You feel something shift inside you, a gentle unlocking, like a door opening with a soft click. The figure turns to you fully. It's time for me to say goodbye. You swallow, a small ache forming under your ribs. Will I see you again? You ask. They smile. When you listen to yourself, when you are kind to yourself, when you return to your truth, when you find your breath again. A pause. In those moments, yes, you will feel me. You close your eyes briefly. The wind brushes your face. The dawn grows brighter. When you open your eyes again, the figure is already stepping back, gently fading into the soft morning light. Their final words drift to you like a feather, landing on your palm. You are ready. You nod. Even though they are now gone, you feel ready. You take one last look at the forest behind you, then turn toward the dawning world ahead. The first rays of sunlight break over the horizon, warm, gentle beams stretching across the dew-laced field. They touch your skin softly, like a quiet welcome from the world you're returning to. The sky shifts into its morning colors, peach blending into gold, then into pale blue. It's serene, refreshing, unrushed. You take your first step toward the waking world, and for the first time in a long while, the step feels light. Not because life has changed, but because you have changed. You walk forward slowly, savoring the morning air. It feels new without being unfamiliar, like rediscovering a song you used to love. Your breath finds a calm rhythm, not forced, not controlled, just natural. You feel the warmth spread across your shoulders as the sun climbs higher. It doesn't burn, it comforts. You realize something subtle but powerful. This light does not ask anything of you. It doesn't demand productivity. It doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't ask you to perform. It simply shines and allows you to exist in it. You continue walking. The field transitions into a path, a real-world path you recognize from outside the story. One you've walked many times, but which now feels different because you are noticing the way your feet meet the earth. Every few steps, you feel a small wave of warmth inside your chest, the soft echo of the sphere from the heart of the house. Its glow settles inside you with each inhale. It doesn't overwhelm. It just reminds. I am allowed to be gentle with myself. You pass a cluster of trees whose leaves shimmer in the sunlight. They cast shadows on the ground, patterning it with dappled light. You aren't afraid of shadows anymore. Not after walking through the hall of softened shadows. Not after understanding that shadows exist, not to frighten you, but to help you see your light more clearly. You smile, a small, real smile. As you walk, you think of the lantern room, thousands of possibilities flickering softly like future stars. You don't know which lantern will become your life. And for once, you don't need certainty. You only need direction. And you have that now. As the morning warms, the distant sound of daily life begins to hum at the edges of the world. Birds calling, footsteps far away, the distant murmur of people beginning their routines. You're walking toward it all, toward your life, toward the choices you'll make, toward the kindness you'll offer yourself, toward the moments you'll listen instead of criticize, toward the breaths you'll take when life feels too sharp, toward the versions of you waiting to emerge slowly, steadily, quietly. You are not rushing. You are not bracing. You are simply arriving. Softly, fully, honestly. When you reach the final stretch of the path, you pause. The morning sun lights the world beautifully, washing everything in gold. You place a hand on your chest. You feel your heartbeat, steady, warm, alive. And you whisper one sentence. Not because the house needs to hear it, but because you do. Thank you. Not to the house, not to the figure, not to the forest, but to yourself. For walking through the mirror, for facing what you'd avoided, for listening, for speaking, for returning. You step into the morning, and it feels like beginning. You walk further into the warming morning, each step gently stitching the world back around you. The sunlight spreads across the path, reaching toward you like a soft invitation. The sky above shifts from the delicate gold of early dawn into a clear, pale blue that feels almost new, as though it was painted just for you. You pause for a moment, letting the morning gather around you. There's something deeply comforting about the way the day unfolds. Not demanding, not rushing, simply opening slowly like a flower easing into bloom. It mirrors something inside you, something steady and spacious that the house helped you rediscover. The breeze picks up slightly, brushing your skin with cool fingers. You close your eyes and inhale deeply, letting the air fill your lungs, your chest, your entire presence. Your breath expands into your ribcage the way truth expands into a quiet room. You feel aligned, not perfect, not invulnerable, just aligned with yourself, with the world, with this moment. As you continue walking, you pass a small stream. The water ripples quietly, its surface catching the sunlight and throwing little glimmers across the bank. You crouch beside it, watching the way the current slips around stones, never fighting, always adapting, always finding a path forward, even when the way is blocked. You touch the water lightly with your fingertips. It's cool, refreshing, alive. The reflection that looks back at you is familiar and new at the same time. You see your own face, softened by the morning light. Your eyes are more open. Your posture is more at ease. Your expression carries the gentle weight of someone who has finally met themselves in full. You smile at your reflection, not the practiced smile, not the polite smile, but the quiet, real one that emerges when you're not trying to convince the world of anything. It feels good. You stand and continue walking. Birdsong blooms through the air, bright, playful melodies carried from tree to tree. The forest opens behind you, leaving only the memory of the house and the path that led you inside it. You glance back once, not out of longing, but out of gratitude. The house feels distant now, tucked somewhere deep in the forest's hidden heart. But the truth it showed you remains close, inside your chest, in the way your shoulders rest a little lower, in the way your breath reaches a little deeper, in the way your thoughts feel less like storms and more like gentle tides. You turn forward again. The world ahead is waking slowly, and you walk into it with a sense of quiet readiness you didn't know you were capable of. As the morning brightens, signs of daily life begin to drift into view, soft and subtle, like the world easing into its own breath. A distant chimney releases a thin thread of smoke. Somewhere farther down the road, you hear the faint clink of a teacup being set on a saucer. Birds swoop above you, tracing gentle arcs through the sky, as though following the natural rhythm of your steps. You walk along a familiar road now, one that leads back toward the spaces you know, the responsibilities that await, the routines that shape your days. But none of it feels heavy. Not today, because you're returning not as someone bracing for impact, but as someone who has begun to understand their own pace. The figure isn't with you here, not physically, not visibly, but you feel a quiet echo of them somewhere in your awareness, like a soft memory warming your thoughts from within. You carry their voice with you in subtle ways. When the breeze brushes your cheek, you remember their reminder to slow down. When the sunlight touches your shoulders, you remember the gentle truth that you don't have to earn rest. When your mind begins to wander toward old worries, you catch yourself, not to criticize, but to notice. The noticing is enough. You walk past a fence lined with morning glories. Their petals open wide, greeting the day with a kind of peaceful confidence. You pause to touch one gently. The softness feels grounding. A memory rises, not a painful one, but a small, forgotten moment when you felt joy so simple you didn't even think to name it. A quiet morning years ago, sitting with a warm drink, watching sunlight drift through curtains. No pressure, no urgency, just presence. You hadn't realized how much you missed that feeling. As you continue forward, you pass a bench, weathered, wooden, a place you've probably walked by many times without really noticing. Today, you stop. You sit. The seat is cool, the wood slightly uneven beneath you, but it feels right. You take a slow breath, and then another. You watch the world for a moment. People beginning their morning routines, birds fluttering in search of breakfast, a distant dog barking with sleepy enthusiasm. Life moves, but you don't feel the need to rush to match its pace. You feel allowed to take your time, allowed to sit, allowed to breathe, allowed to be. You rest your hands in your lap and look down at them, the same hands that touched the mirror, the same hands that rested on the glowing sphere, the same hands that met the other version of yourself across the table. These hands have held so much, more than anyone knows, more than even you realized before. And yet they are steady. You realize something quietly beautiful. You are capable of carrying your life, not by force, not by pressure, but by presence. And when you grow tired, you are capable of putting things down. The morning light grows warmer. You stand from the bench and take another step forward, one that feels like returning and beginning. At the same time, you walk a little farther, following the road as it curves gently toward the village ahead. Homes begin to appear, warm lights glowing through windows, silhouettes moving calmly inside. Curtains sway with the morning breeze. Doors open slowly as people begin their day. You watch someone watering plants outside their porch. Their movements are unhurried, peaceful. You feel an unexpected connection to them, as though you both understand the quiet beauty of starting fresh. The world feels more intimate now, more accessible. Not because it changed, but because you can meet it with softer eyes. As you pass a small garden gate, you notice a cat lounging on a stone wall, stretching luxuriously in the sunlight. It blinks at you, unbothered, utterly content. Something inside you warms. You continue walking until you reach the last turn before home. It's a curve you know well, one you've taken hundreds of times. But today, it looks different. Not physically, but in what it represents. It marks the transition back into the life waiting for you. The errands, the conversations, the responsibilities, the joys, the unknowns. There is no dread in your chest, just a quiet, steady acceptance. You pause at the corner. The sun casts long shadows behind you, and the light ahead is soft and open. You place a hand on your chest again. Your heartbeat is calm. Your breath is deep. Your presence is full. You think of the house with the mirror door. You think of the halls and rooms and gardens. You think of the truths you met there. You think of the other you, sitting across the table, offering their hand. You think of the warm sphere of inner truth, pulsing like a second heart. And you think of the final words spoken to you. You are ready. You take a step forward, then another. And then, without hesitation, you walk home. Not the old version of home, but a home you meet with your new understanding, your new softness, your new acceptance. A home you are ready to inhabit fully. Your life is waiting. And this time, you arrive as yourself. As the world settles into its quiet morning rhythm, you find yourself moving with a new gentleness, a softer breath, a steadier mind, a quieter heart. The journey through the house is complete, but the understanding it gave you stays in your chest, in your thoughts, in the small moments where you choose kindness over judgment, presence over pressure, peace over perfection. You walk into your day feeling whole, balanced, more yourself than you've been in a long time. You carry the mirror of honesty, the light of your becoming, the echo of your truth, and the quiet certainty that you are allowed to rest, allowed to grow, allowed to be gentle, allowed to be enough. And tonight, when the day winds down, and your breath slows, and the world softens around you, maybe you'll remember the house again, not as a place you visited, but as a reflection of the truth inside you. A truth that continues to glow. A truth that continues to guide. A truth that continues to be yours. Thank you for taking this journey. And now, let the rest of your night unfold in calm. Let your breath deepen. Let your body soften. Let your mind drift where it needs to go. You are safe. You are held. You are home. Thank you for listening to Mindtales Sleep Stories. If you enjoyed this story, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who needs a peaceful night.